can't take it anymore. Kim Jong-Un, the supreme leader of North Korea, could be the one to trigger the next Bitcoin pump. I reported yesterday on the hack at Bybit and that massive amounts of Ethereum were stolen. This whole thing is linked to the Lazarus group, which is associated with North Korea. And it is now jokingly said that North Korea has the largest Ethereum strategy reserve. And now there are signs that this Ethereum is currently supposed to be swapped for Bitcoin. So we have selling pressure here with the hackers selling Ethereum to buy Bitcoin. I mean, that makes sense. They're trading toilet paper for something valuable. And now we want to take a look at how absurd the situation is right now. There are still a ton of news about the hack at Bybit. And also, what's going on in the background here is super relevant. Because on the other side, there's now pressure against the Ethereum Foundation. They want to roll back the blockchain. However, if you do not roll back the blockchain, then you run the risk of not being OFAC compliant, which means you could be seen as supporting terrorism, because North Korea is internationally classified as a terror state or a rogue state, or whatever. It's considered a really, really bad example. And the Ethereum Foundation is currently showing us why Bitcoin is so superior here and why Bitcoin is now winning. Everything that is happening here is massively good for Bitcoin, not only for the Bitcoin price, but also generally for adoption and simply for strengthening the Bitcoin network. I mean, in the short term, you have to say that it does bring some turbulence, a bit of uncertainty to the market, which doesn't leave Bitcoin untouched either. But I'd say, considering we've just seen the biggest hack, the Bitcoin price is relatively stable. And if there were to be massive purchases here via the North Korean hacker gang, then of course, that would be the case. Crazy for Bitcoin. If you want to know exactly what went down, how the whole hack happened, then I made 2 videos about it yesterday. But now we'll look at the next story is about why North Korea might be building up massive Bitcoin holdings. Or here, the hacker group has to differentiate whether this is attributed to North Korea or the hacker group. But some say the hacker group is like an extended arm of North Korea. It's said that North Korea's Lazarus group is transferring stolen Ethereum from Bybit to Chainflip to convert it into Bitcoin. Chainflip has restricted some front-end services. However, as a decentralized protocol, it can't completely block transactions. Over $1.1 million in Ethereum would be converted. So the amount that's being converted right now is still relatively small because the problem the hackers have is, okay, they have Ethereum and they know, well, they don't really want to hold on to it. I said toilet paper before is a bit mean, sure. If someone wants to hold on to Ethereum or whatever, they should go for it. I have no problem with that. I just like to throw in a little jab here and there compared to other cryptocurrencies when you see that Bitcoin is superior here. But if you're making any kind of gambles or whatever, that's fine by me. I just want to keep reminding you, hey, keep your focus on Bitcoin, and then, if you want, go ahead. Gamble with 10% of your portfolio or something like that. That's fine by me or whatever. Gamble with 100% of your portfolio if you want. But Bitcoin is different here, and we're going to see that now. Now the hackers have the problem, okay, they have Ethereum, and they want to swap it for Bitcoin because they know, well, Bitcoin might be the more valuable option in the long run. And now the question is, how can they do that? Because if they go to centralized exchanges, all those Ethereum tokens are already locked. Not locked, but blacklisted, I should say. All the Ethereum tokens that would now be hacked here, the addresses are known and they are already blacklisted. And if they were to send it to the centralized exchanges, those exchanges would just freeze the coins. So they have to go through decentralized exchanges now, but that can be tricky just like that all at once. We're now seeing the $1.1 million that have already been converted. That's obviously relatively small regarding the total amount of the 1.4 or 1.5 billion hacked Ethereum that are out there. But when all of this hits the market and gets swapped into Bitcoin, then we're going to have massive buying pressure coming onto Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be that everything flows into Bitcoin. It could also be that they cash out a bit into fiat money or something like that. But the hackers now have the problem, how can they wash the money in here without getting their coins frozen? And now they will probably develop some clever methods, probably via decentralized exchanges or OTC. Or I don't know exactly how to do it, we'll have to see. And this could trigger the next big buying pressure for Bitcoin. It is also said that Lazarus Group is possibly the 14th largest holder of Ethereum in the world, even surpassing Vitalik Buterin and the Ethereum Foundation. This notorious hacker syndicate is now a key player in the crypto landscape. So, it's crazy that they have more Ethereum than Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation. And now we really have to look at why this is so relevant here for Bitcoin. Because the issue here is that the blockchain might actually be rolled back. And that's always a worst-case scenario if you just say, okay, we're rolling back the blockchain, and the transactions that happen here are now invalid. We're doing a hard fork, which means we're splitting the network, where the hackers still have a valid transaction. And there's a new network where you say, okay, the hacker transactions are now invalid, and you go back to the state before the hack happened and let the chain run again. According to the latest information, it indicates in a post that Vitalik is officially and publicly announcing that the Ethereum Foundation will vote tonight on the decision regarding potentially the controversial action of either executing a significant chain rollback or completely removing the hackers' Ethereum from circulation. Let's make communism great again. This goes back to a statement that Vitalik but Aaron made, make communism great again. And now we see Kim Jong-Un, who is one of the biggest holders of Ethereum. It really has some serious comedy potential. So, I don't know if we should see this as kind of sad or if it's just comedy. Or I don't know. It's probably a mix of everything. But what's going on right now is absolutely crazy. You're basically in a downward spiral here. So, Matthew Crazy summed it up really well. He also has a YouTube channel. You guys should check it out, Bitcoin University. He always does really well Bitcoin content. And he's explaining the downward spiral that we're in right now. The Ethereum Foundation is involved and how this can also strengthen Bitcoin. He says here, specifically, if Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation don't implement and enforce a hard fork to cut off the North Korean hackers' funds, they should be held accountable for aiding global terrorism in any way. And then he puts a hashtag at US Treasury, oh fuck. So this is the problem here. Either you let the hackers get away with it saying, okay, hey, we're not doing a chain rollback or something like that, we're not rolling back the chain, we're not rolling back the blockchain. But then you have the accusation that, for example, the US could say, hey, you're allowing transactions that aren't OFAC compliant, that these transactions are going to North Korea, you could roll back the chain. And then it could end up with Vitalik but Aaron landing in jail in the worst case scenario. I don't know if it will actually come to that. Yeah, partly it's meant as a joke, of course. I mean, whether it actually comes to that, whether Vitalik or the Ethereum Foundation gets targeted and sued, I don't know. That would need to be clarified legally how exactly that looks. Because they didn't intentionally let any transactions go through to North Korea. So what happened is that it got hacked. But the problem is, because Ethereum has a certain level of centralization, there's just the Ethereum Foundation here. And with Bitcoin, that wouldn't be possible. With Bitcoin, you couldn't just say, okay, now the Bitcoins are being stolen. And hey, dear Satoshi, either you roll back the chain, or we throw you in jail. One, because you're not OFAC compliant here. With Ethereum, that works. Because we have a central foundation here. We have a Vitalik but Aaron that could potentially be targeted. I mean, I don't think that's cool either. It's awesome when you do that because somehow you should really let people just do their thing, even if it's Bitcoin and all. I also think that the general embargo lists and everything that comes with them aren't good. So a lot of Bitcoin folks are happy about this now, like, hey, Vitalik but Aaron is being targeted now because of OFAC compliance, blah, stuff like that. And I think it's unfair to put pressure on him now because ideally, there shouldn't even be such lists that say, okay, you can do transactions with some people, but not with others. Yeah, I know North Korea might not be great and all, but that's the whole idea behind Bitcoin, that financial resources should actually be available to everyone, and not let just anyone play God here. And yes, definitely, it is not. It's crazy what's happening in North Korea. But still, I am not a fan of the embargo lists here because there would be so many exchanges, so many banks and so on would be suppressed. We've also seen it with Operation Shockpoint 2.0 and all that. And if you don't stick to those lists in the US, then you're in big trouble really fast. That was also the case with Binance, why CSET got locked up because he didn't follow the OFAC guidelines and just let transactions go through. And then it was just said, yeah, he financed terrorism here, he somehow favored money laundering and stuff like that. I mean, that's a hot topic. You can see it differently like I do and say, okay, hey, we absolutely need these kinds of lists. Feel free to drop a comment down below about whether you think it's good that we have these terrorist lists, where certain people are allowed to make transactions while others aren't. The problem is that it often affects people who are not like that. Yeah, with Kim Jong-Un, you could really have a discussion. It might actually make sense for him to be on the list. But with other people, it can often happen that their accounts get frozen, and they end up on such a list. And it's just not right that they're on such a list when they haven't really done anything wrong. And on the other hand, if you really go that far, and when it comes to the hard fork, if, for example, Vitalik but Aaron gets pressured, he doesn't make that decision all by himself. He definitely has a few pros and so on that he decides with. Or maybe he'll ask the community or something. I don't really know how that works, but the problem is that it's really dumb for a blockchain if you roll it back. That's definitely another loss of trust. Some people say that's the advantage of Ethereum, that you can roll it back, and so on. Those are the kinds of debates you don't have with Bitcoin because there's just no such thing. Bitcoin is a decentralized network, and you can't roll it back. And that's why the US can only come to us and can say, hey, come on, now let's roll the chain back. Or something like that, because there's just no such thing. Carl Menger has written something very well put here in X. And he has put the whole situation into perspective. He says here, the Bybit hack reveals Ethereum's weakness. Why can't that happen with Bitcoin? Hackers exploited vulnerabilities in Ethereum smart contracts to access Bybit's cold storage. After they compromised the computers of the multi-signers, they sent manipulated transactions that looked legitimate. While the hardware wallets confirmed the correct addresses, They didn't show the hidden smart contract code that gave the attackers control over the cold storage. And now here comes the exciting part. This kind of attack isn't possible with Bitcoin. Bitcoin transactions are straightforward and don't support embedded smart contract code. This means that a transaction with the correct recipient address, when set up on a pure Bitcoin hardware wallet, goes through just as intended. It will be transmitted. No hidden exploits. Bitcoin scales in layers for a reason. The base layer must remain secure and reliable while innovation takes place in higher layers. Less code, fewer vulnerabilities. And that's definitely something you need to take away from this. I think that's it. The Ethereum Foundation and the Ethereum folks are also aware that Bitcoin is just the simplest option. Maybe you can't do as many crazy things right now on the main layer. But that's not really important because on the main layer, we primarily have decentralization and security. These are the most important things about Bitcoin. And then on second layers, we can do all sorts of things. Now I almost had to move the camera around. On second layers, we can do all sorts of fun stuff like lightning or something like that. And if something were to happen here, it wouldn't be that bad. Because nothing has happened on the main layer. And then we have some issues or something with the lightning network here. As far as I'm concerned, a few Bitcoin lost. But then the main layer here isn't compromised. And a lot of people criticize that about Bitcoin. Yeah, there's so little that's possible. No smart contracts or fewer smart contract capabilities. You can't do as much innovative stuff there, and all the developers are over at Ethereum and so on. But that's not a disadvantage of Bitcoin. It's more about how it is. Carl Menger says that's an advantage of Bitcoin because it gives Bitcoin higher security and greater decentralization. There are fewer potential attack points here with Bitcoin because often when we see any hacks, it usually has something to do with MetaMask NFTs. I don't know, something along those lines. I mean, to be fair, some people have said that it's not like Ethereum is getting hacked here. It's just that Ethereum was basically used to exploit the hardware wallets of the Bybit folks. So it wasn't Ethereum that got broken. It was actually a human error on Bybit's part and so on. You have to be honest about that too. And that's why I always recommend, if you have a hardware wallet, to go for a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet. When you're here, for example, only Bitcoin holds because the same principle applies. The less code, the less attack surface. I was also asked about whether to get a hardware wallet or not. I always recommend the TREZOR hardware wallet. I'll put a link below where you can get 10% off the purchase of such a hardware wallet with the code Bitcoin Hotel. And now people have asked me, okay, should I go for the multi-wallet where I can put all my coins? Or should I go for the Bitcoin-only wallet? So you can go for the multi-wallet if you have other coins. If you have Ethereum or whatever, then you need the multi-wallet. But if you want absolute security, then go for the Bitcoin-only option. It has a bit less code, which means it has less attack surface. But you still have to say that the multi-wallet isn't really at risk here, or something like that. Those are just nuances or something like that, where you can see that the same thing that applies to Ethereum also applies here to the hardware wallet. The less code, the less attack surface, the less code, the potentially safer the whole deal is with the hardware wallet, just like it is with cryptocurrency. And if you want to buy Bitcoin now, I'll put a link for you below. 21 Bitcoin. Always use the auto wallet transfer here, so you can directly transfer the Bitcoin to your hardware wallet without leaving the Bitcoin on the exchange. You can easily avoid hacks like the ones here at Bybit. That's only possible at 21bit.coin. At most regular exchanges, it's not possible. So, my absolute recommendation is to go to 21 Bitcoin and set up the auto wallet transfer directly to your own hardware wallet. Guys, let me know what you think about it. Peace out.